You're listening to The Bible Guys, a podcast where a couple of friends talk about the Bible in fun and practical ways.
So, Chris, today we're going to do a segment
Yes.
where we're going to vote who's most likely.
Yes.
And we have these paddles that have pictures on them. So if you're listening online, you're going to have to imagine just how incredibly handsome we are.
Yes.
Because our pictures
and
are
heroic.
And heroic, yes. Thank you, Robert. And how incredibly handsome we are in these pictures. But for those of you that are watching online, Chris's picture, if you see Chris's picture, it looks like he's talking.
Can you zoom in on that, Josh?
Can our expert zoom in?
There
you
is.
go. Chris looks like he's super engaged and excited to be talking to people.
I'm explaining something.
Yeah. And just happy to be there. I look like I have gas. Real bad gas, don't I? Look at my face. It's like,
when they chose this picture for you, they did not choose the most flattering picture.
I don't know. Yeah. So,
That's funny.
I don't know. I have very many flattering pictures anymore, but that was
That's funny.
Whoever picked that. Thank you. So this episode or this segment, who's most likely? We're going to use our Jeff and Chris faces to show who we think is more likely to do these next five things.
You know what I feel like doing? I feel like not reading any of them because I haven't read them yet.
Okay.
How about you read them and I'll just react?
Okay. Ready? Who's most likely to open a pizza restaurant?
You.
Me. I say me too.
Yeah. And it's because
I love cooking.
You love cooking, and I'm actually not that big of a pizza fan.
So you're just not a good Christian. That's why.
Yeah, it's one of these weird things about me where I like pizza. Like
one of the weird things. I've got like dozens of weird things about you.
I have weird food things.
Yeah, I know. You don't eat chocolate.
Yeah, I don't love chocolate.
What kind of monster doesn't like pizza or chocolate?
And no, I like pizza. Yeah. I just don't go crazy. Like people go, "Oh, pizza." I go,
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know even how to deal with that.
Yeah.
So I like to make pizza. I make pizza at home.
Yeah.
Like make the dough.
If somebody gives me great pizza, I'm appreciative.
I love to make the pizza on my grill. It's so good. Okay, here you go. Ready? Here's the next one. Who's most likely to get scared by an inanimate object?
Oh, that'd be probably me.
Chris. I would say Chris too.
Although not likely, it's just that I'm more likely than you because you don't get scared
You're
of
more
anything.
easily startled or surprised.
Well,
you're more surprised.
I would imagine nothing scares you almost ever.
I can get startled. Jenna sometimes in the dark, if she's walking down the hallway, I'm walking down the hallway, and I turn around all of a sudden, right, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So she's spooked me several times where she'll get me, but yeah, most of the time. Well, even though like our team was trying to shoot a video of me being surprised, and so they set up a couple of very elaborate surprises.
Yeah.
And I come walking in and just didn't give them what they were looking for, and I didn't realize what they were trying to do it the first time. Right, and they're just disappointed. I don't know why, but I don't surprise a lot like that. So okay, who's most likely to become a stunt double? That's me.
I'd say me.
You really?
Yeah.
Are you a stunt guy?
I've always liked that.
Okay. Yeah.
You know what? Let me just say this: the old me.
The old you. Yeah, you are the old you. You mean the former you?
Yeah, the former me.
I was gonna say you are the old you.
Yeah. The former me.
Yeah.
Before my body took a turn.
Okay.
I would have definitely said me.
Yeah. So how many times have you been to the hospital for injuries?
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah, because you weren't trying hard to be a stunt double if you don't have a lot of hospital
That's
injuries.
True. That's true. Yeah, so you're right. You know what? I recant.
Do you recant?
I'm going to say you.
Yeah, I think I've dislocated 10 or 11 joints, and I've had 21 sets of stitches.
Yeah, I'd say you then. I'd say you. Yeah, I don't even come close to that.
Okay. Who's most likely to participate in a historic reenactment?
Oh, that'd be...
I think you're the costume guy. You think it's me?
I put you because you love history.
I like history, but I'm not going to wear a costume and go dress up and run around and act it out. You're the one. You're more of a theater guy.
I think your brain is sharper than mine today because I think I'm going to recant again.
Are you going to recant?
Yeah, because I would totally do that. I really would.
Yeah.
I just wasn't thinking about the costume part. I only heard the word history.
Oh, history. Yeah.
But then,
so I love the history stuff.
Yeah. But now that you're saying, hey, let's do
It's the reenactment. Yeah, the actor in you.
Did you ever see Sweet Home Alabama with Reese? What's her name?
No, I haven't.
Anyway, but they did like a whole reenactment of the Civil War, whatever. It's really funny.
Yeah. So that's funny. Yeah, I think so. You just have this natural actor in you. You love that, right? The whole thing. So, and then here's the last one. Who's most likely to send their food back at a restaurant?
I'd say you.
Oh, really? I have you.
Really? You don't want to send it back?
I never send my food back.
Even if it's
Ever.
bad?
Yeah, I just eat it. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
So you're more of a, now I'm a foodie.
No, I'll just never go back.
Okay.
But I'll suffer through what they give me most of
You're
the time.
going to make me recant again because
really?
I will send it back in a heartbeat.
So you've changed your mind on every one of these? Almost.
No.
On three.
Three
Yeah,
to five.
Yeah.
Hey, the thing is, only certain foods I would say. So sometimes if they'll bring me something like, I'll say, please no peas in the shepherd's pie.
Oh, right.
And they'll bring me peas. I'm like, okay, I'll just pick them out.
Yeah.
Right. So like there are certain things that I'm not like a diva.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, I will send back every time: a steak. If I say medium rare and that sucker comes like medium, I'm like, I'm not eating this piece of leather.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So I'm so sorry that you did this to yourself, but you're going to have to throw away the steak or recycle it. But I'm going to get it. I'm going to get what I want here.
Yeah.
So,
I should be more assertive on that. I just don't. I just go, I'll suffer through this and I'll never come back.
Yeah. There's only a few times, but I'm telling you, if it's bad enough, I'll totally send it back.
Well, good for you, man.
Is it though? Is it good for me?
Well, today, if you're going to go, because you're talking steak specifically, so you're going to spend what, $45 on a good meal, or $50 just for your meal,
right?
And you should get what you want. You're not being a jerk. They made a mistake.
Yeah,
you don't have to scream about it.
No.
You don't have to cuss out the chef. You just say, hey, I think you made a mistake, and if I'm going to pay $45, I want what I ordered.
I'm as polite as I can muster up to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong with that. I typically am just, I don't know, I get embarrassed about confronting people, and I feel embarrassed confronting.
You don't get embarrassed confronting me.
Well, it's because I like servers.
I like servers. You don't like me? Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah, so, no.
Hey, before we move on with our Bible reading stuff, I just want to say, if you're watching on YouTube, share it with somebody. Share the Bible Guys. In fact, take just a second and say, you know what? I'm going to pick even the people that I don't like. I'm going to go ahead and send it to them because they need the Bible Guys, just like we all do. So we would really appreciate it. Subscribe and leave us a message. We'd love it. Thanks so much.
Matthew chapter 23, verse 37 through 39. And then we're going to read Luke 13, 31 through 35.
Yeah, and the reason why, because we haven't done this in a while.
Yeah.
We're actually reading two accounts on two different Gospels because we're doing this chronologically, and so these are the same accounts, same story.
We're going chronological and parallel.
Yes.
So chronological means it's in the order that it happened as best as we know. And then in parallel means sometimes more than one of the Gospel writers will tell the same story. Right. And what's really fun when you get to do that is you get to look for the differences.
Right.
And it expands more on what you know. So Jesus is grieving over Jerusalem, and this is really a moving passage. He's been around Jerusalem, heading to Jerusalem, in and out of Jerusalem here over the last few weeks. And it says, "O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the city that kills the prophets and stones God's messengers. How often I have wanted to gather your children together as a hen protects her chicks beneath her wings, but you wouldn't let me. And now, look, your house is abandoned and desolate. For I tell you this, you will never see me again until you say blessings on the one who comes in the name of the Lord." That's in Matthew 23. Luke chapter 13 says, "At that time, some Pharisees said to him, 'Get away from here if you want to live. Herod Antipas wants to kill you.' Jesus replied, 'Go tell that fox that I will keep on casting out demons and healing people today and tomorrow, and the third day I'll accomplish my purpose. Yes, today, tomorrow, and the next day I must proceed on my way. For it wouldn't do for a prophet of God to be killed in Jerusalem, or to be killed except in Jerusalem. O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the city that kills the prophets and stones God's messengers. How often have I wanted to gather your children together as a hen protects her chicks beneath her wings, but you wouldn't let me. And now look, your house is abandoned, and you'll never see me again until you say blessings on the one who comes in the name of the Lord.'" So here he is outside of Jerusalem. Yeah. And it's interesting. I think it's interesting that the Pharisees are the ones who reach out. Is it Pharisees? Yeah. Some of the Pharisees reach out and are saying, "Hey, watch out. Herod wants to kill you."
Yeah, and I love how Jesus, I always try to imagine whether he sort of says it under his breath, like to the crowd, or whether he's making this big statement, "You go tell that fox," as if to say, Go now, messenger, and tell him.
Yeah.
Or whether, and I picture it differently. I picture it him like why don't you just go tell that fox that, and whether or not he was being literal or not. So anyway, I love the fact that Matthew and Luke tell the same story, and I think Luke includes more details, right?
Because, almost always. He was extraordinarily detailed.
Yeah, and by the way, Luke was a physician, right? So he was
a historian.
And a historian. So Luke, his nature was, I think, that, right?
Very, very precise.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had a lot of scientific precision.
Mm-hmm. And so anyway, I just love how that it includes that part of it. And so Jesus is really saying, he's announcing to people that he's going to be killed in the city of Jerusalem.
Yeah.
And he says it. And I wonder how many people, were there that just didn't hear it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because he often did that, right? He would say, tear this temple down, and in 3 days I raise it up. And they said, well, I don't know what you're talking about. And later on, the disciples say, what did you mean?
Yeah.
And he says, I'm talking about my body.
Right.
And then they said, what does he still mean? Right. Like they still didn't know. Right. But like there he is, man. He's totally he's anticipating his own death.
Well, do you remember a couple of days ago when we read it said Jesus was going towards Jerusalem, right? He was heading to Jerusalem.
I said he was always pressing.
He was pressing towards Jerusalem.
Yeah, toward Jerusalem, yeah.
And his but he stopped and he was healing people. He was teaching people. So he didn't let anything distract him from his mission. He was on his mission. And here, I don't think that the Pharisees are trying to say, hey, Jesus, we care so much about you. We want you to be safe. What they're trying to do is keep him from going back to Jerusalem. Right? That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to, because remember, he had left Jerusalem and he goes out to near where John the Baptist was baptizing. That's where he was the last couple of days that we've been talking. Here is he's out near, and you've been there, right? Down where John the Baptist is baptizing near outside of Jericho. The Bible described it as the wilderness. Right. So he went out into the wilderness, and that's where he's hanging out. And now the Pharisees come to him and go, hey, I don't know if you heard, but Herod's wanting to kill you. You probably shouldn't go back to Jerusalem. Right. Because when he goes back to Jerusalem, all these crowds gather around, all this stuff. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to interrupt his ministry. And I love the fact that Jesus goes, hey, listen, I'm going to do what I want to do. I'll do what I'm going to go do my ministry today, and I'll do it tomorrow, and I'll do it the third day too. And Jesus isn't letting the politics of the situation. He's not being intimidated by Herod. He's not letting the religious leaders who don't think he should have a voice affect him, or his critics affect him. He said, I'm just going to go do what I'm going to do, and you're not going to affect it. And I think that's a pretty cool way of doing it, is that ministry was not going to be interrupted by the fact that there were other dangers or circumstances around him.
And if you're in Jerusalem or near Jerusalem, you'll know that it sort of sits on a little mini hill, right? Yeah. It's like it's not a very big hill, but it's just a mini bit of a hill. And what happens is it sort of goes.
But it's high up.
It's high up. Yes.
So the city of Jerusalem, it sits on a small hill. The valleys are kind of steep around it. But it's a long slope from the Dead Sea, way up to Jerusalem. For sure. But I was imagining in my mind is like, for instance, if you were coming over where the triumphal entry is, where the Mount of Olives and everything else. So if you're outside near Jericho, you're sort of you're on another hilltop, and you're looking over to Jerusalem, which is sort of on an elevated hilltop, and so it looks sort of majestic. And you can see the whole skyline of Jerusalem. And so there are people who believe, I don't know if you took the tour and you're a tour guide in Israel, but they were over on that next mountain where Jesus would have been at this point, and said this could have been somewhere around where Jesus said, "Oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, how I long for you to gather you like a chick, like a hen gathers her chicks under the wings." And they said this would have been sort of the view. Yeah. And so I picture, and I don't know if nobody knows if that's true. Yeah. But based on where he was and based on the landscape, it is possible that he would have actually been looking at Jerusalem at this time, which is why he reflects and says, "Oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem," because he's to the point of being moved to tears over them. Yeah. And so, I would imagine that he's looking at the people and just making a blanket statement about the people of that city. Yeah. And by the way, I've heard somebody say this, and I don't know if this is necessarily
a popular thing, but I've always been totally fascinated when I heard an author say this. He said, this is an image of motherhood. So a hen, gathers chicks under her wing.
Yeah.
That's a motherly instinct.
Right.
And so
Protect.
to protect. And so God created man and woman in his image, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't know if this gets a lot of playtime, but this would be Jesus showing the fact that, that God has both, that man is created in his image, all the instincts that are just sort of reserved for men, and all the instincts that are reserved for women, typically. And I know it's not popular, by the way, to say that men and women are different in 2023, but they are.
Right.
They're radically different.
And both in the image of God.
Both in the image of God.
Yeah.
So this is Jesus demonstrating the motherly instinct of wanting to protect in this moment, which I think is a really cool, fascinating type of thing.
Yeah. So just for quick clarity's sake, you can't see Jerusalem from Jericho. Jericho is down really low.
If he's in Jericho.
Right. Jericho. But that hill that you were talking about, just on the other side of that hill is Bethany. And it seems like, which is just a few miles outside of Jerusalem. So that hill there would have been, this is, Jesus is kind of hanging around the Mount of Olives, and on the backside, and then there's Bethany, and then across the valley would be Bethlehem back in that way. And then where he was way down by Jericho, right? So when he's standing on that hill.
So you're saying one of two things. Either A, I heard my tour guide wrong, which is probably more likely.
No.
Or B, my tour guide was wrong.
No. What I'm saying is, so what you said is, if you're in Jericho, you can see Jerusalem. And I was just saying you can't do that. But what he did is he'd come up from the Jericho region and was then standing on the side of that hill.
That's the clarity
All
part.
I was bringing clarity was he came from the Jericho region, somewhere down there in that wilderness area, and came up that steep, long trek up the hills and the valleys to get to Jerusalem. And then from that point on, there are these little valleys, little hills, little valleys, and maybe 300, 400, 500 feet elevation. They're not really big. So standing on that side, Mount of Olives side, the reason why he would have been there wasn't because he was just always camping out in Mount of Olives, but he did that a lot, was because there were other towns along the other side of that hill, Bethany probably being his base. That's where Mary and Martha and Lazarus lived, and he was there a lot. So by the way, I was just clarifying that.
Yeah. Well,
but I do believe that's where he was standing when he said that, because I think he was looking over Jerusalem in the eastern gate.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. By the way, I think you know this, but did you know that the people who make the most money in all of the state of Israel is tour guides?
Yeah.
Yeah, because they have to be educated in all the world religions.
And they get very well educated. There's a whole college process for getting educated.
They're like doctors.
Yeah, they're really geniuses.
It's equivalent to getting your doctorate degree and be an actual doctor, medical doctor.
Yeah,
which is crazy.
So this idea of, oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, I love, you can kind of hear the passion and the heartbrokenness. Yeah. Jerusalem, remember, Jerusalem is sitting on the mountains of Moriah. This is where God sent Abraham with his son Isaac, to sacrifice. This is the beginning of not the beginning, but this is kind of towards the beginning of the nation of Israel and the promise of Isaac, and ultimately that the Messiah would come. And then later on, David comes back and comes to that region and establishes his kingdom, sets up his capital there. He builds the city of David on that first little hill that juts out from where Jerusalem sits now. Solomon turns it into this glorious city. All these things. The people loved the city. The temple was built there. The presence of God and the Holy of Holies was there. This was supposed to be the capital of the kingdom of God on earth, right? And then they wind up sinning. They go against God. They rebel. They find other gods. God allows the city to be destroyed. Then they get rebuilt, and then it gets destroyed, and it gets rebuilt. And then the Romans come in, and they're being oppressed. And even now, in the presence of their Creator and the one who established the entire storyline and established the importance of the city, he's standing outside the city, going, "All you guys do is kill the people who come to tell you about God," right? And there's just. It's not anger. It's not resentment. Oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem.
It's heartbreak.
It's heartbreak.
Yeah.
And so you see the one who has the ability to call down 10,000 angels if he wants to.
Right.
He could just say, forget it. I'm going to wipe this place out. All you ever do is kill the prophets. And he doesn't do that. Instead, he's we see another time when he comes back almost to the same spot and he weeps. Remember, the Bible says that he cries and he says a very similar phrase here, "Oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem." And, you're wandering like you don't have anybody who can lead you without a shepherd. And so you wonder how God feels when we wander away. Does he hate sin? He hates sin, hates it.
Yes.
Despises it, hates it, will judge it with wrath and anger. But he loves his people, right? So he loves sinners and hates sin. Right. And so here in this situation, you've got the creator of the universe who so could be and should be so offended by them, and instead he's brokenhearted by them. And it just shows the compassion of Jesus. And this is what, it makes you realize he's willing to do anything to win his people back, to the point where he's willing to let them kill him.
Yeah. No, and knowing what's coming. This is a statement that is not dissimilar to when he was on the cross and he said, "Father, forgive them, for they don't even know what they're doing."
That's right.
That's what he's doing. He's saying like, man, I long to do this, but they are who they are, and what's going to happen is what's going to happen. But yet he has compassion for them as people because he loves them.
And then moves into the motherly kind of illustration.
Right.
So instead of being angry at these people, he loves them. He says, "Oh, I just wish I could wrap my arms around you and pull you in. If you could just know the love I have for you and the protection that I want to provide for you." It just really is almost exactly the opposite response to the kind of response I would have if I knew they were trying to kill me.
Right. which by the way, is a great sort of final thought for anybody listening out there who feels like God is so wrathful and angry because you've messed up, or because you can't seem to quite get it right about that sin you're praying about and you keep on slipping up with and everything else. And just know that like God is going to continue to not only forgive you, but he's going to continue to give you grace. And he doesn't wink at our sin. Yeah. He wants us to repent and turn. He wants us to try hard and everything else. But just know that God doesn't give you what we deserve. He doesn't give us what we deserve. Right. And that's called mercy. Right. But then he turns around and he gives us what we don't deserve, which is called grace, which is the unmerited favor and love of God. Yeah. Always. Yep. So that's a great place to end. And we will see you next time on The Bible Guys.